Burberry's dark past, how a war brand became royal fashion. Those who look at a Burberry store window today, illuminated by crystal chandeliers and attended by royalty, can hardly imagine that this brand was born amidst mud, gunpowder, and pain. The trench coat, a symbol of elegance and power, was forged in times of war, and its history is marked by glory and guilt, by honor and destruction. It is the paradox of British luxury, an empire built on chaos, which learned to transform scars into style. While the world viewed fashion as vanity, Burberry saw it as survival. Behind every stitch lay a silent battle between tradition and modernity, purpose and greed. The same fabric that protected soldiers from storms was, decades later, burned in heaps to preserve a status of exclusivity. And this contradiction, between the useful and the superfluous, the heroic and the vain, is what makes its story so fascinating. Today, the Burberry name carries the weight of royalty and the scent of redemption. It's living proof that even luxury has ghosts, and that true prestige doesn't come from perfection, but from the ability to reinvent oneself. So before continuing, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, because here you'll discover the hidden stories behind the world's most powerful brands. Now, get ready. Burberry's past is much darker than it seems. Thomas Burberry was a young dreamer from the English countryside, driven by a simple idea: to create clothes that could withstand the unpredictable British weather. In 1856, he opened a small shop in Basingstoke, without imagining that he was about to redefine the history of fashion. While others saw the rain as a nuisance, Thomas saw it as a textile engineering challenge, and that's how the Burberry logo was born. Gabardine, a revolutionary fabric that is water and wind resistant, yet light enough for everyday use. The creation of gabardine was not a stroke of luck, but the result of a mindset that blended persistence and scientific curiosity. Burberry believed that innovation lay in the details, and spent hours testing natural fibers and new weaving techniques until he arrived at the perfect combination. His motto was simple: to dress the man, to face the world. This philosophy would become the backbone of the brand, reflecting not only in the product, but in its entire identity: practical, elegant, and durable. Soon, adventurers, explorers, and travelers began to notice the difference. Gabardine clothed legendary figures, such as the explorer Ernest Shackleton, who wore it on his expeditions to Antarctica. The garment, created to withstand storms, began to symbolize courage, resilience, and conquest. It was the beginning of a silent transformation, from a village tailor to a brand that, unknowingly, was stitching its name into history. When World War I began, Thomas Burberry's genius found a new purpose. And ironically, it was in the trenches that his creation became legendary. Trench coat. The trench coat, or trench coat, was born from the practical needs of British officers. To protect themselves from mud, rain, and cold without sacrificing style. Every seam had a reason, every button a function. The belt, for example, wasn't just for aesthetics. It was used to carry grenades, maps, and compasses. Burberry didn't just dress soldiers, it dressed an era. While others saw uniforms, Burberry saw symbols of honor and discipline. Their coats accompanied men who endured unimaginable horrors, and the gabardine fabric became a silent shield against the harshness of war. Some say the name trench coat carries the weight of human suffering, but also the glory of those who survived. It was curious to see how something born from destruction began to represent strength, resilience, and even status among the military. With the end of the war, the trench coat left the trenches and invaded the streets of London. Men and women wanted to wear the symbol of bravery that was previously restricted to the army. Thus, what began as a military uniform became an icon of fashion and power. The curious thing is that, without realizing it, Burberry was building something much bigger than a piece of clothing. It was creating an archetype, that of nobility disguised as simplicity. And that was only the beginning of the paradox to come. Over the decades, Burberry's glamour began to blend with shadows. The brand, born from resistance, began to carry an unexpected weight. That of extreme exclusivity. In an effort to maintain its status, the company began destroying unsold stock, a practice that came to light in 2018 and shocked the fashion world. Millions of pounds worth of clothing, perfumes, and accessories were burned, all to prevent luxury from falling into the wrong hands. What was once a symbol of functionality now seemed distant from the reality of those who had once worn such courage. Elitism took over the brand's image. The stores became inaccessible temples, and the practical essence that Thomas Burberry envisioned began to be lost amidst extravagant fashion shows and campaigns far removed from its original simplicity. Burberry, once associated with overcoming challenges and adventure, seemed to have forgotten its roots. The gabardine, created to face the world, now dressed only an elite seeking distinction, not purpose. It was as if the spirit of the creator had been silenced by the echo of modern luxury. But it's curious how history always finds a way to demand consistency. The brand that had dressed soldiers and kings would face a different kind of war, a war of reputation. Scandals of destruction and boycotts led to an internal awakening, forcing the company to rethink what it truly meant to be a prestigious brand. And it was at this turning point that something began to change. Slowly, the dark past began to give way to a new narrative, one of reconciliation between tradition and purpose. Burberry's turnaround didn't happen by chance. It was the result of a profound, almost spiritual reconstruction. Realizing that purposeless luxury was becoming empty, the brand decided to revisit its origins. Under new creative direction, it sought to reclaim the balance between tradition and modernity. Campaigns began to exalt the British legacy, craftsmanship, and adventurous spirit that had been forgotten. The trench coat, once a symbol of war, returned as the uniform of elegance. The brand, which had previously burned its leftovers, was now learning to create consciously. It was during this phase that the Burberry has won back the hearts of the British royalty, reaffirming its position as one of the UK's most iconic brands. From soldiers in the trenches to kings in palaces, the Burberry name has spanned generations with a mix of respect and reinvention. The new luxury it came to represent was no longer about exclusion, but about belonging, about dressing not just the body, but history. And in revisiting the past, it understood that its strength had always been in its authenticity. The collections began to reflect this rebirth. Classic, yet daring. Traditional, but with an eye toward the future. It was almost poetic to see a brand that once symbolized survival become synonymous with identity again. The runways once more told stories of resilience, of purposeful elegance, and of how true prestige comes from remaining true to one's roots. However, this return to origins concealed something even deeper, a reflection on the true meaning of power and heritage. Today, Burberry represents much more than a fashion brand. It's a legacy symbol. Their pieces are not merely meticulously crafted fabrics, but living fragments of British history. The trench coat, for example, carries the same essence from the trenches to the red carpet, worn by everyone from soldiers to movie stars. And there's a beautiful irony in that. What was born to withstand the mud of war became the emblem of royalty and refinement. The same fabric that faced the cold and rain now parades under golden spotlights, without ever losing its soul. The secret to Burberry's enduring success lies in something that transcends time: the ability to tell authentic stories. Each stitch carries the memory of a hard, yet victorious past, and it is precisely this contrast between pain and glory that fascinates the public to this day. While many brands only seek trends, Burberry maintains a living narrative, where each piece is a silent testament to resilience. It proves that true luxury is not born of gold, but of the coherence between who you are and what you represent. Looking to the future, the brand seems to understand that true prestige lies not in crowns, but in consistency. Burberry has become a reminder that every success story is, in fact, a story of overcoming adversity, and that, ultimately, true elegance is remaining standing, even after the storms. Perhaps that's why, even today, wearing Burberry is not just a fashion choice. It's a silent declaration that the war is over, but the spirit of victory remains. Looking at all this, it's impossible not to wonder, how many times have we ourselves burned parts of our history to appear more perfect? Burberry shows us that true luxury lies not in hiding flaws, but in transforming them into strength. Just like her, each person carries their own inner battles, and perhaps true elegance is learning to walk with dignity even after the storm. In the end, it's not the label that defines value, but the story it carries. And if there's one thing Burberry's journey teaches us, it's that the past never has to be a sentence. It can be a springboard. Every reconstruction begins the moment we have the courage to look at what was, acknowledge what hurt, and move on to create something better. The war that once destroyed the brand was the same one that transformed it into a symbol of victory. And the same can happen to us if we decide to rewrite our own narrative. So tell me, what part of your history do you need to reclaim today? What fabric of your life still bears the marks of a war that's over? Reflect on that. And if you want to continue exploring the hidden side of the marks, minds, and stories that shape the world, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because there are still many secrets waiting to be revealed.